Welcome to Exception Seekers, the show where we challenge conventional views on youth mental health and explore stories and experiences that offer alternative perspectives. I'm your host, Colleen McLean, and today I sit down with Kim Hopkins, who is a clinical social worker who has over 25 years working with kids who have challenging behaviors. She's managed the clinical departments of various youth serving residential facilities, foster homes, and therapeutic day schools. She's a collaborative and proactive solutions trainer and the director of learning resources and support for Dr. Ross Greene's nonprofit Lives in the Balance. She comes with an incredible amount of experience and perspective for us when we are trying to navigate really tricky moments with our kids. So I hope you enjoy. Stay tuned. Being a young person can be tough. Raising a young person can be tough. Whether it's school stress, family dynamics, or navigating challenging emotions, everyone needs the right support. That's where Sound Youth Counseling comes in. We specialize in helping children ages 4 and up through individual, parent, and family counseling tailored to meet each person's unique needs. From tackling tough issues at home or school, to providing customized workshops and professional development for teachers and community leaders, we're here to make a difference. At Sound Youth Counseling, we believe young people deserve a safe, welcoming, and accepting space to grow and thrive, and every family deserves the tools to support them. If you're looking for support, visit soundyouthcounseling.ca and see how we can help. Sound Youth Counseling, empowering individuals, supporting families, and building stronger communities. Well, Kim, welcome to Exception Seekers. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to speaking with you, and I want to learn a little bit about your story and path to doing what you're doing. But I also know we're going to be talking about Dr. Ross Greene's work as well with the collaborative and proactive solutions and some of his work or your work with Lives in the Balance. And so I was wondering, maybe we start there to let people know kind of what these pieces are. So we kind of then can have a bit of a framework for where you fit into it all.
Sure. So Dr. Greene's life's work, collaborative and proactive solutions, is an incredible model for helping kids who display behaviors in the face of problems and frustrations. It's non-punitive and it doesn't actually focus on behavior, which so many models that we're taught as parents or we're taught as teachers or we're taught as clinicians are focused on behavior. And in the collaborative and proactive solutions model, we're not focused on behavior at all. We call this an upstream model where it's kind of based on a fable where there's a community that lives upstream and a community that lives downstream. And the downstream community, they look over in the water because people are screaming because they're drowning. So the downstream community goes, wow, we got to help these people, right? And they're exhausted and they do their best, right? But what they don't do is get out of the water and dry off and walk upstream and say to the upstream community, how come people keep falling in the water up here? Like people are falling in the water and they can't swim. So what's going on, right?
Yes.
Many models are focused on looking at kids' behavior. So when kids are in the water, right, they're doing their behavior and they're focused on how often are they in the water? How long do they stay in there? What is the target, right? We're not focused on that, which is a complete departure from my original training. We are focused on what's going on upstream. And when we walk upstream, we find problems that kids did not have what they needed to solve. In other words, expectations that kids were not able to access the skills they needed to meet. And so when we focus our interventions and attention upstream, we focus on problem solving with kids together. That's the collaborative part, right? With them because they need practice solving problems. And also proactively, the best time to solve a problem is not when a kid is drowning. The best time is not when the problem's happening outside of the problem, when we're all safe and dry on the side of the riverbanks, right?
Yeah.
And so in doing that, we prevent them from falling in the water. So we extinguish behavior. without focusing on it and without being punitive. Because all punitive
Right.
does is tell them this behavior that you did, we don't like. That's all it tells them. But they already
Right.
knew that, especially as they're even just a little bit older. They already
Yes.
knew that before it happened, right? So we're not
Yes.
really doing anything or changing anything or solving anything by doing the punitive thing.
Right. So yeah, so a framework to support behavior that doesn't directly talk about behavior.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I like, and we can talk more about it later too, but just pieces that stand out to me are, the plan ahead, but that doing it together,
Yeah.
involving everyone. Because I think sometimes a lot of behavior response plans are things that you'll be taught or think about. It's an adult directing or telling or instructing or um and not always involving, which I think gives that other layer of understanding what was happening. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
We call this an ask the kid model
Mm.
because yes, we can observe their behavior for sure. We can often observe their feelings, but we can't observe how they think about it. We can't observe how they think
Mhm.
about a problem that they're having trouble solving. Only they know. And so and recently
Mhm.
Dr. Greene's been saying it's not our job to know, it's our job to find out. We got to
Mm.
ask the kid. Even kids who don't communicate with mouth words, even kids who were feeling like, oh, they're never going to talk, there are ways that we can flex and adjust the model because we
Mhm.
need to collaborate with all kids, regardless of age, regardless of linguistic ability, right? We
Yes.
need to collaborate with all kids, right? And what behavior tells us is, if I was struggling to access the skills I needed to solve the problem, well, then I need some training, some experience solving problems, which is also why we collaborate with kids to give them
Mhm.
the experience they need. By doing that, we actually strengthen the very skills that were involved in the first place. So
Yeah.
it's you get a lot done and it feels
Yes.
good. It feels really good all around because we don't need to be punishing and consequencing and doing that whole dance. So
Mhm. So, okay, so that I know it's a very like there's a lot to it. That was certainly like a snapshot overview. Um, how does Lives in the Balance fit in with CPS?
sure. So Dr. Greene started Lives in the Balance, which is a nonprofit. Oh, it's our 15th anniversary actually, and we're
Oh, wow.
celebrating that in some
That's a
different
long
ways this
time.
year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And he started it with two intentions in mind. One was to give away free resources to help people learn the CPS model, right? So
Okay.
you can learn the whole model for free on our website, and there's lots
Hmm.
of videos and audio and things you can download and print out and share widely, all free, right? And then the other intention was to advocate on behalf of kids and their caregivers, their parents, their teachers, their providers, because the system is broken and um, it needs to be fixed, right? So we we have an attorney on staff and we work on policy and legislation to try to get punitive practices out of schools and
Okay.
yeah, and so we're doing a lot to advocate, and there's a whole section on our website of all different ways people can get involved in the advocacy
Hmm.
side of things to really help people realize that non-punitive is the way to go, and there
Hmm.
are alternatives, and
Hmm.
yeah, so lots of data and things that people can wrap their heads around to help and get involved, small ways and big ways and everything
Got
in
you.
between. So I encourage people to check all that out.
Okay. So the CPS is sort of the framework piece of it, and then Lives in the Balance is like a not for profit kind of advocacy education branch. So it's like connected, but also does its own work in some ways.
Yeah, I think that Dr. Green's really clear that when we're
Hmm.
engaging in advocacy work, we're not saying you have to do it the CPS way. We're
Right.
saying there's just other ways. You got to find one. We have one
Yes.
way, Doesn't
Yes.
have to be our way, right?
Right.
And then yes, educating people about what our way is, because there's a lot of benefits to doing it our way and a lot of
Yes.
research behind it, and it's evidence-based, trauma-informed, inclusive.
Hmm.
So yeah, the sort of two pieces, but the model came first.
Right.
Mhm.
So, so you're a social worker.
Yes. Mhm.
Um, how how did you how did you become involved with CPS, with Lives in the Balance, like with what you're doing now? How did that journey start for you?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I actually, whenever I start my talks, I always tell
Mm.
people because I wasn't trained this way. I was trained the exact opposite of this. And
Oh,
so,
interesting.
yeah, in the 90s, I started working in residential care, and kids ages 12 to 22.
Okay.
And we were doing some incredibly punitive things that some of which are not
Mm.
allowed anymore today, which is good. But we were using seclusion. We could keep kids from seeing their families if they had
Yeah.
behavior, right? You can't do that anymore in Massachusetts, which is good. But we were restraining a lot. So we were restraining
Mhm.
kids. We had 12 programs, including 2 therapeutic day schools, and we were restraining kids about 400 times a year,
Wow.
across those 12 programs. And my nose has been broken in a restraint, and my ribs have been bruised, and
Okay.
kids were hurt, and we couldn't
Mhm.
keep staff, right? And so
Mhm.
we started thinking about, I don't think that this is as therapeutic as we're being told it is.
Right.
And it's
Yes.
not working because we're doing it over and over and over again, right?
Yes.
Um, and then we were also noticing that kids who would make gains, maybe in our more restrictive settings, if they step down to a less restrictive setting,
Mhm.
often did not sustain those gains in a different environment with less adults around telling them what to do. Um,
Okay.
so we were looking at that. And then
Yeah.
it just so happened that it was a year where the state was recontracting with providers like us. They do that every 10 years or so, just to be able to get best practices into
Hmm.
programming, right? And it's a big stressful situation because just because you have 12 programs today doesn't mean you'll have 12 after
Right.
recontracting. So
Right.
at the time, the state was asking for us to subscribe to what they were calling an evidence-based portable treatment model.
Mhm.
Evidence-based meaning rooted in research, but portable meaning that it worked not just in our staff secure settings, but also
Mhm.
in a foster home or in our schools or in a family home or a community
Okay.
based school, right? So um, that did not describe what we were doing. So all this was sort of happening, and it was just serendipity that a colleague of mine who had actually recently left the organization sent me an email and said, if you need credits for your license, you should go hear this guy, Dr. Ross Greene, speak because he's really good and you'll find it to be interesting. He had no idea like all the things that we were trying to change really.
Yes.
And so I decided to go. Um, and I had no idea I was going to find the answer to everything that my organization was grappling with, in that talk that he did. So, and that was 25, 26 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
So that started my organization. We, on a journey to change, but it was 180-degree. It was really hard making the shift,
Wow.
but well worth it. And even at the beginning, early days, we reduced restraints by 75% before we were even good at the model, right? So we had some good things happening, but you know,
Wow.
it was a lot to take on at once and it was hard. And then I decided that working 60 hours a week and being on call, and I was going to get married. So that all didn't kind of mesh so well. And
Yes.
so another colleague of mine was like, you should call up that Dr. Ross Greene guy and tell him you're good at his model. And I was like, I cannot do that. But I will send him an email. So I did.
Okay.
It turned out that he had a project not far from where I lived that he needed some help, and we met. And that was, gosh, 18 years ago, something
Wow.
like that, maybe even coming up on 19. I got to do the math, but and ever since then, I've had the honor and privilege of being able to disseminate his life's work.
Wow. So you were like, okay, what's happening here? Just something's not working. You happened to go to this talk and then took that and went back and said, we need to do it differently.
Yeah, I was at the time I was the head of the clinical department. So,
Okay.
like all the clinicians in the 12 programs reported to me, and I had the ear of the CEO. And
Okay. So you
I
were
was
well
like,
positioned.
yes,
Yes.
I was positioned and respected, I think helped. And I was like, I know it sounds crazy, but this is what we have to do. The one thing I would say I would never do today, I wouldn't change all 12 programs at once. I would do one. One, and then
Mhm,
spread
mhm.
from there. Like, so we're always telling organizations start small, because that's how I know it takes a little bit longer and you're desperate to change everything, but it will
Yeah.
actually be easier and more lasting. And you really are like, for us, we were shifting culture. That's really hard to do, especially
Yes.
when you're like all 12 programs. And then I also was like, hey, we're not secluding anymore. Hey, we're not I'm taking away, we're not using point and privilege systems, we're not using timeout chairs, we're not using it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I took it all away, which I wouldn't do today. It
Right.
naturally, people, when they get good at the model and they have successes, naturally will see like, oh, it doesn't make sense that we have timeout
Yeah.
chairs, and it doesn't make
Right.
sense. Like, and that is a much better way to do it than the way I did it.
Yes.
What did I
Yeah,
know?
that's quite ambitious to go and just
Mm,
overhaul all of it so quickly. And I would imagine for some of the staff who were there, in some ways you were almost taking away everything they thought they knew
yeah.
that they could use, and then that
Mm.
yeah,
That was super unpopular, super unpopular. And
that's a big shift.
and staff had concerns about that, and we apply the model to adults too. So I was not validating their concerns by just being like, sorry, we're not doing it anymore.
Hmm.
Right? I
Hmm.
wouldn't, we call it plan A. I plan aid implementation. I forced it on them, as opposed
Yes.
to like slowing it down, hearing them out, addressing their concerns, which were valid.
Sure.
Um, and
Sure.
so, yeah, I would do it much differently today, but I was winging it on my own. Lives in the Balance didn't exist then, so we didn't have like
Okay. Okay.
all the resources to rely on. And
Yes.
yeah, I read at the time. I believe it was only The Explosive Child at the time.
Hmm.
Dr. Greene has 4 books now and a 5th one coming out soon. Um, but we only had that, and we just read it over and over and over again, and had these conversations and tried to make it make sense. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it was wild, but it was great. I learned a lot.
I'll say yeah, that must have been yes, such an immersive, um, intensive learning opportunity in many ways, of both what worked well and then kind of, as you've said, things you probably wouldn't do again or suggest be done, right? Like
Right.
it's, yeah.
But it's interesting, like, we have a cheat sheet for how to do the model that you can print off. We call it the Plan B cheat sheet, because Plan B and CPS mean the same thing, which we could talk about in a minute.
Yeah.
But like, we didn't have that, right? So I made my own, because I don't remember things. So if I'm sitting in front of a kid, I needed to write down like step 1 is this, step 2 is this, step 3 is
Yes.
this. And so that, like, the cheat sheet we now have today was a little bit more from early experiences of just winging it and figuring it out.
Yes. Yes. Easier than like leafing through a book to try to
Yeah,
find your
yeah,
pages of what you
right,
need. Yes.
right.
Well, maybe, you've mentioned plan A and plan B a little bit. Maybe just, for people who aren't familiar with it, maybe, yeah, give us a bit of how would you describe plan A and B for
Yeah, well, I'm also going to talk about Plan C, if you don't mind, because there are
Plan C,
3.
all of them. We can throw that one in. Yes.
All right. Well, first of all, expectations are really important, regardless of your role with kids. That's how you exert positive influence with kids, right? Is to have, we like the realistic variety of expectations, but you got to have expectations, right?
Hmm.
Um, so when you have an expectation for a kid and they're meeting it, you're good. You're fine. I have nothing to
Right.
say about that, right? It's
Right.
when you have expectations for kids that they're not meeting, now you need a plan of action, right?
Yes.
So if we're talking about expectations kids are not meeting, you've got 3 options for handling it,
Hmm.
right? We call them plans A, B, and C.
Okay.
Plan A is the thing we're all taught. It's my training, right? It's behavior modification. It's, I'm the adult, I'm a good problem solver, so I'm going to tell you how it's going to go, right? And
Right.
usually that's accompanied by some sort of adult imposed punishment of some sort, right? Like, If you have trouble getting off the computer again, I'm going to take the computer away for the next week, right? That would be
Yes.
plan A, right?
Yes.
Um, if you use plan A, so all these plans have two applications, right? You can use them all proactively outside of the out of the moment,
Mm-hmm.
which would be if I just did that computer one with a kid, it would be like the situation's over, they're at baseline, could even be the next day. And then I'm like, well, if that happens again, I'm going to take your computer time away, right?
Right.
Um, you can do each of these plans emergently, heat of the moment, kids
Right.
drowning, right in front of you. And you would say, if it was plan A, I would say, stop, you can't, knock it off, or I would repeat
Mm-hmm.
the expectation, right? Get off
Right.
the computer. Which all sounds like, yeah, we all do that, right? Again, it's very in our culture. And when a
Mm-hmm.
kid is actively not meeting expectation, it's not because they don't know it. It's
Right.
because there's something else going on. So
Yes.
plan A does pursue our expectation, which is great. It just does it at a huge cost. The
Yes.
relationship takes a hit because
Mm-hmm.
kids learn that we're to be worked around. We stand between them and everything they like to do. So now we're not
Mm-hmm.
honest, right? They're not coming to us for help if they need it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the relationship takes a hit, which makes it harder to have positive influence with kids,
Right.
right?
Yes.
We could make things worse, right? And
Yes.
that's because it takes skills to adjust to plan A. It takes flexibility, adaptability, impulse control, frustration
Mm-hmm.
tolerance, problem solving skills, the skills that we know that the kids were most concerned about struggle to access in the first place. So they can't
Mm-hmm.
catch the plan A ball coming at us.
Yes.
And so, you
Yes.
know, either proactive plan A, kids at baseline, and you deliver proactive plan A, now you could throw them in the water and they could experience behavior all over again, right?
Mm-hmm.
An
Mm-hmm.
emergency plan A, kids already in the water, but we're
Yeah.
pushing further downstream by laying plan A on them. So
Mm-hmm.
we're also not
Mm-hmm.
giving them any experience solving problems when we use plan A because we're just doing
Right.
it for them.
It's just
And we're also,
directive.
yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Just do this, right? And if
Mm-hmm.
you don't, right, here's what we're going to do. But we're also not getting any information from them about what was hard about meeting the expectation in the first place. Information that, again, we can't observe. So we'd love to have
Mm-hmm.
it, right? So not much is getting done with plan A. I
Right.
would reserve plan A for one situation, which would be imminent risk of danger. So imminence key. It means
Right. Like
if
running
I,
across the street.
right, like if I don't
Or
intervene, someone's going to get hurt. I'm not going to allow that to happen. So it would be emergency A. I wouldn't use proactive A at all. Emergency
yeah.
A. But here's the thing. It means I got surprised, which in the CPS model, we do the assessment of skills and unsolved problems so that we're not
Mm-hmm.
surprised. We're trying to be proactive. So in order to be proactive, we have to figure it out. Like we have to make the kid predictable. So if I used emergency A, it means maybe I didn't do it or I didn't do it thoroughly, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing. And it's all the downsides are still true. So I'm going to have to acknowledge to the kid that
Yeah.
the relationship took a hit and I might have made things worse and we certainly didn't make anything better. And we need
Mm-hmm.
to then go back with another plan, which is
Mm-hmm.
going to be plan B. But so that's plan A. A lot of people
Mm-hmm.
familiar with plan A.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll skip B for a second. Plan C, that's when you set the problem aside temporarily. Um, and there's good reason to do that. And it's not willy-nilly. It's not like, oh, I don't feel like pursuing this expectation, so I'm not going to, right?
Yep.
It's more like, again, we did our assessment of skills and unsolved problems. We have our list of unsolved problems, in other words, unmet expectations. We made the kid predictable. Some kids have a very long list. We can't work on it all at once. Um, so for the things that we're not working on, we need to plan C. We need to give
Right.
ourselves and the kid the gift of plan C. Like it doesn't mean that our expectations are not important. It means that we are being strategic, we're triaging, we're stabilizing, we're
Mm-hmm.
managing expectations so we don't have to manage behavior, which makes room to work on
Right.
the ones that are high priority, right?
Yeah.
And
So
that
this, so you do this like assessment of the lagging skills or pieces. So like what might you come up with on a list that
sure.
would just to
So
give context to then say like this is why we might set some aside if it's too long. Like what would be
sure. Yeah. There's some prompts on there, depending if you're in a home situation or a facility or a school.
Mhm.
But if this was a school setting, people might say things like difficulty getting started on your math fractions worksheet, difficulty walking quietly in the hallway from our classroom to the library, difficulty keeping your hands to self when you're sitting next to John in
Mhm.
the cafeteria. So
Got
um,
you.
they all start with the word difficulty, right? Because we're not
Yep.
talking about maladaptive behavior. And then we're going to
Yep.
insert the expectation, like using a nice observable verb. How do you want this to go? Oh, I want the kid to hang their coat on the right hook when they come in, and it's never happening. Okay, difficulty hanging their coat on the correct hook when they come in the morning, right? So
Right.
any expectation that they're not meeting. Some home examples would be like difficulty, I mean, they're so numerous, right? Putting
Mhm.
your dirty dishes in the dishwasher after dinner. Difficulty getting started on your spelling homework after dinner.
Right.
Difficulty, um, you know, uh, finding something to do.
Yes.
Between 3:30 and 4:30, that's not a
Yeah.
screen. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
so
Like that.
because like when you say them off, like when you list them, they sound so simple. Right? Like these are very like they sound like very they sound almost like simple and kind of nitpicky in some ways, right? Of this like, putting your
Yeah.
dishes, but I can also then imagine if it's like putting your dirty dishes in the dishwasher. It- that sounds like okay, why, is that a big deal that needs to go on a list? But then I can imagine when it's like day after day after day, and I can see that like plan A response, and then the cycle of frustration that happens. Um,
Mhm.
it can become, yeah, they could become bigger deals. But
Yeah.
then if there is a list, I'm thinking of like the school ones you gave, maybe getting started on your fractions sheet is on there. But if like keeping your hands to yourself is on there, maybe that's the focus. Like, is that an example where you might say, you know what, the fraction sheet, that would be nice, but the like hands to yourself is actually like more of a
Yeah. When
priority
we
at the moment.
When we talk to people about prioritizing, we say pick the big fish, pick the ones that are
Right.
leading to the most safety issues, or maybe it's based on frequency, the ones that are happening most
Right.
often, or the ones that would just make a big difference in the life of this kid
Yes.
and everybody around them to
Yes.
solve. So yeah, and
Right.
I mean, it does sound a little nitpicky, and just to address that for a minute,
Hmm.
you got to go in specific with kids
Yeah.
or you're not going to get the information you need, right? So these are the words we're going to
Right.
use when we go to solve the problem with the kid. So if I say to a
Mhm.
kid, hey, buddy, I notice you have difficulty getting along with your peers. What's
Right.
going on? They're going to be like, I mean, it's a one-way ticket to getting no information. I need
Yes.
to be specific, like who and like when. And it doesn't
Mhm.
mean I'm ignoring all the other kids and all the other times it happens. I'm just
Yes.
saying, for now, let's just focus on this. You had difficulty getting along with Joey when you guys were playing basketball yesterday after school.
Mhm.
What's going on,
Mhm.
right? Now I'm not again not ignoring that it happens with more than Joey, and I'm not ignoring that it happens at other times in basketball, but I'm taking this slice
Yeah.
so that hopefully we can reflect on it, get depth of information, get a solution. Now we can see, does that solution also work for Foursquare? Does it
Yes.
also work for flag football? Does it also work for Sarah? Does it, right? And if
Yes.
it does, great. Then you knock out more than one. But if it doesn't,
Hmm.
that means there's something different at work that we then need to have another problem solving conversation about.
Right.
So there's a lot of good reasons to like bring it down. And you're
Hmm.
right. Asking a kid to put dirty dishes in the dishwasher, kid doesn't do it, kid escalates, parent escalates. So now we're dealing with a bigger
Totally.
behavior, right? But it all
Yes.
started with, your dishes go in the dishwasher and that's been hard for you to do, which is why I'm intervening. You don't like my intervening.
Yeah.
And then we go, right?
Yes. And I mean, not to say I've been there, but like I could imagine. Yeah. Right. Like I can feel it. I know exactly. Like, yeah, I've 100% been in those cycles. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
Yep. I mean, yeah. On our not good days, we've all been there,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Yep.
And so then where does Plan B come into this then?
Sure. So Plan C is, let me just finish that
Sorry.
just to give
Yes.
it context. It's
Hmm.
useful, but it doesn't get us all the way there. So it's not the model, but we like it. because you're going to need it because you can't solve everything at once with plan
Right.
B, right? But the thing about plan C, it doesn't pursue your expectation. So that's why it's temporary, because we need to do that.
Yes.
But the relationship stays intact. Great. We're not making things worse. Great.
Right.
But we're also not teaching anything or giving any practice with skills. Not great.
Yep.
So now we have plan B, right? And a way to remember it, A stands for adult, maybe C could stand for child, B could stand for both. That's where you are solving the problem collaboratively and proactively. That is the model, the CPS model. And that's where you're going to work with the kid proactively, right? Because the key is the more proactive plan B and C you do, then you won't need emergency anything. And any emergency use of any plan, you don't know how it's going to go. It's unpredictable.
Right.
Anything's better than emergency A, but you still don't know. So you'd rather not find yourself in the heat of the moment. That's the goal.
Yes.
So, proactive plan B, it has 3 steps. And the steps happening in one sitting, we don't care about that at all. But the steps happening in order are really key. And so there is a cheat sheet on our website. Again, that's like what I would have in front of myself when I would learn this with kids, right? And so the first step, it's the ask the kid step. It's called the empathy step, where we're trying to gather information from the kid to understand their perspective on the unsolved problem. How do they think about it, right? And for kids who don't communicate with mouth words or use few words or use words but can't put them together to tell us, we are the partner here. So we will assist. And there's lots of different ways to kind of take guesses. You can use pictures, all kinds of things that you can do to try to get information. And this step takes a while because they're not going to be like, well, I'm glad you asked, right? So you might say, hey, you're having difficulty putting the dirty dishes in the dishwasher after dinner each night. What's going on? If the kid talks, they're not going to say, well, I'm glad you asked. Here's what's happening. I'm having
I've been
trouble.
thinking about this for a while.
Right. My impulses, and I'm not, right. No, if they say anything, it's going to be very surface. It's going to be something like, I don't like to, which is not meeting the goal of the step. The goal of the step is to get information. So you have this like light bulb aha moment, like, oh, that's how you think about it. Okay, now I see how this gets off track, right? So because it's going to be pretty surface, it's time to drill for information, which is neutrally and non-judgmentally being a detective. And we also have a drilling cheat sheet of 8 different strategies that we use to ask questions in a neutral, non-judgmental way, because we really want to know, we really want to understand. So we might, as an example, reflective listening, clarifying statement. You don't want to fill me in, right? Now that's not brain surgery to repeat back what they said and ask for clarification. But yet if we're doing plan A, we're not doing any active listening, right? So it's another way to show that we're doing something different. Could ask W questions like what makes you not want to do it? When did you start not wanting to do it? We actually don't ask why, doesn't tend to get us the information we need, but it's challenging not to ask why and to have to read. Or you might say, okay, you finished dinner. You're looking at your dirty dishes. What do you start thinking? Or what does your brain start telling you? Or draw me what your brain starts telling you. So there's lots of different ways to ask questions to try to understand what's happening. And we can flex how we are in that step depending on the kid's age, linguistic ability, cognitive ability, all of that, right? Once we get a clear understanding of, what's getting in the way, we're no longer in the dark, we're no longer guessing, right? Then step 2 is the define adult concern step. And by contrast, this is a very short step. It's like a sentence, maybe 2, where we are letting kids know why it's important that they put the dirty dishes in the dishwasher. Like, so we wouldn't repeat, the thing is, you need to put your dishes in the dishwasher. That's expectation. And we started with that. But now we're speaking to why is that important to us? The thing is, I'm worried that if we leave dirty dishes around, we'll attract bugs and rodents. Like, I'm worried about that. I'm also worried that I have a lot to do after dinner and it's hard for me to get to everything. And so maybe like a health concern, a fairness concern, but like
Yeah.
really getting to the essence, the core, so what? Like, why is this so important to me, right?
Yes.
Now it's time for the third step. It's the invitation, where we're going to invite the kid to consider how do we bridge their concern and ours, right? So we're going to
Right.
repeat, I wonder if there's a way we can do something about you feeling icky about touching food or dishes that are dirty, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
also do something about the fact that I don't have the time to take care of everything and I'm worried about attracting bugs and rodents.
Right.
Do you have any ideas?
Yeah.
And, a good idea has to meet two criteria. It has to be
Mm-hmm.
feasible, meaning
Mm-hmm.
doable,
Mm-hmm.
realistic. We think we can pull it off, right? And it has to be mutually satisfactory, meaning it has to meet the kid's concern and the adults, both,
Right.
not one, both.
Yes. Yes.
So things get interesting because sometimes kids say ideas that are unrealistic. We get then,
Right.
we
I
wouldn't
could just
pick it.
throw out the dishes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I would say that's an idea. The thing about that is we have a
Yeah.
budget. So let's
Yes.
keep thinking, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, and sometimes kids will just be like, I'll just do it. Well, that meets your concern, but that does nothing about how it feels icky to you to touch dishes that have food left over on them, right?
Right.
Like we really do want to address that because if I make that important to me, the kid will make my concern important to them, which
Yes. Yes.
then we're both working hard to meet one another's
Yes.
concerns, and that's a really cool place to be. So then we
Yes.
come up with a solution that meets the criteria. We decide to give it a shot and then touch base and see if it's working. Sometimes first solutions don't work, and we come back
Mm-hmm.
together
Mm-hmm.
and kind of figure out what can we learn from this so that we can tweak
Mm-hmm.
it and move forward. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you get lucky, and that's fun because now
Yeah.
we've extinguished behavior.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so then in theory, I mean, I love the idea of like both people coming to the table to say, what can we figure out? Um, in theory, then you've worked through it, come up with something that's successful, then you could go back to your list and pick a different priority. Like that's kind of how it
Yeah.
would,
That's how it
long
goes.
term,
Yeah.
how it would flow.
Yeah, you can work on up to 3 unsolved problems at a time, but
Hmm.
those are 3 separate conversations. We don't want to pile
Hmm.
on kids, right? And
Hmm.
you're absolutely right. We get it solved, then we go over to what something that we were using plan C,
Right.
and now we're going to work on that.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So you mentioned that this model is trauma informed. And I've seen pieces that, it's um neurodiversity affirming or works for neurodivergence as well, like it's an inclusive model. Um, how is it different in those regards and some of the other approaches that are out there that you've mentioned? Like what makes this
Yeah.
one uh, what makes the potential impact of this one so high?
Yeah, I think we're not telling anybody how to think,
Mm,
and we're honoring that people think differently. That how
yes.
this kid thinks about putting dishes in the dishwasher might be very different than how I think about it. Doesn't mean it's wrong.
Right.
I might not like what they say as long as it makes sense. It's high quality information. They might not
Mhm.
like what I say in the second step, but as long as it makes sense, it's in the mix, right?
Mhm.
And so we're not,
Right.
trying to change anybody. We're just helping
Mhm.
them to function in places that right now they're unhappy with, right?
Mhm.
And sure, adults might be unhappy too. We did also change our language around skills not too long ago. We used to call them lagging skills, but now we talk about skills that kids are struggling to access because we
Okay.
didn't want anyone
Mhm.
feeling like we were saying there was something wrong, right? We're just saying
Right.
that, to function in the situation and be happier, that there might be some skills, if you could access them, that things would go better, right? So
Mhm.
it's not about trying to make this kid look as good as these other kids look. It's trying to help this kid function to their ability in ways that they would be happy with.
Yes.
Um, and we're not uh putting anyone down. We're not,
Mhm.
I mean, punishment stuff is traumatizing depending on how we're punishing, right? So we're not
Mhm.
doing any of that.
Mhm.
Um, and so Yeah, and you know, the trauma informed piece, absolutely, we know that trauma can, for some people, mean that they will struggle to access skills, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not 100% guarantee, but we do know
Mm-hmm.
that for some kids in some situations that can happen. So we're honoring that. And
Mm-hmm.
also, you don't need to know why a kid struggles to access skills to be able to help them. Frankly, even if they did experience trauma and they happen to struggle to access certain skills, we can't be sure that the trauma is the reason why, and we don't need to be sure to intervene in a way that will help.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and really, it's about giving kids agency. This is an ask the kid model, nothing without the kid,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, and we're not going to agree to a solution that they're not up for. That makes no sense, right?
Yeah.
And if they have trouble coming up with a solution, we are the partner and we would maybe float an idea. And if we float an idea and the kid says, nope, then we're not doing it. I would love to
Yeah.
learn, you know, what about it you didn't like so I can make
Yeah.
a better suggestion. But,
Yeah.
you know, this is very much
Mm-hmm.
an inclusive model that
Mm-hmm.
really gives kids agency. And the hope
Yeah.
is these 3 steps to plan B, that kids will learn them so they will use them when you're not around. And that is
Mm-hmm.
a beautiful day when that happens.
I so much of the pieces that you mentioned there are reasons why like I love this approach, you know, and because it's and I know in Dr. Greene's work, like he'll say often, right, like kids do well if they can, right? Just this idea of like if we can do it, we'll do it, and if we
I don't know if
can't,
you can see my mug, but my mug says that.
oh, yes. Like and I I just think that's such a beautiful perspective when we're looking at because some of these behaviors or some things that we see sometimes can be really frustrating. And you know, I think it can help us just pause a little bit with a different lens when we see it. Um as I think of this, like, and I talk with a lot of kids and families that struggle with meeting expectations in school. And I hear a lot of different ways that teachers will try to encourage or direct behavior. Um, some maybe more helpful than others. Um, so if a parent is listening to this and is thinking, oh my gosh, like some of what you've been describing is my kid. And, you know, some of what you've been describing as these punitive things is what happens in the classroom. Um, what advice would you give them to, because I mean, I don't want to be like super critical of teachers either, because there's a lot that, you know, they have to manage and there's pieces that they just don't know too. And they're like, everyone's doing the best they can.
Oh, yes.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, but if a parent's listening to this and thinking like, okay, I've got this new perspective, how do I talk to a teacher about this? Or like, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Teachers, if they get any training in classroom management, it's very little and it's plan A. So
Hmm.
they only know what they know. I only knew what I knew when I thought I was helping kids, right? And so,
Yes.
first, yeah, we're all doing the best we can with what we've got, right? I think there's some key resources on the website. If you can find like a sympathetic ear,
Hmm.
that would maybe hear, you know, that there could be a different reason why, you know, your child is doing what they're doing at school. It seems like the school thinks it's like to be disrespectful and to be this and to be that, or they don't care or whatever. And, you know, for you to say there could be a different reason, I'm realizing that my child struggles to access skills under certain conditions, right?
Hmm.
So if you can find a sympathetic ear, then there's a 1 pager on the website. It's a 1 page description of the model that
Okay.
can be useful. Um, so I know a lot of parents, including myself, who have gifted teachers. The first book Dr. Greene wrote for educators, which is Lost at School.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's like an easy read. It's like a story, and so
Yep.
it's not a heavy read kind of thing if someone's open to that. There are certainly tons of videos on the website and our YouTube channel that are short that could be impactful if
Okay.
you're trying to you know, just sort of get somebody to open their mind that the way
Yeah.
they've always done it or been taught to do it is not really the best way or the most helpful way.
Mhm.
And certainly honoring that they're tired and overworked and underpaid and all of that.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm.
And then, from there, there's trainings and things like that. If they were interested to that level, if you got them hooked, then,
Right.
ways for them to kind of really dive into the model and learn
Right.
it. But it just takes
Yes.
one sympathetic ear.
Yeah, so
Really.
maybe like find your person and then kind of like little nuggets just to like
Mhm.
drop and get them. Mm-hmm.
And there's
Okay.
stuff on the advocacy section of the website too. It's
Okay.
immense, like incredible data that when people look
Yeah.
at this, they're like, oh, right.
Okay.
Like when we say
Okay.
to schools, so you've given this kid 40 detentions in 4 months. So when are you going to decide detention's not getting the job done? Right? Like they're just doing
Yeah.
what they know how to do,
Yeah.
not realizing. A lot of people do not know that plan B exists. Plan A exists, plan C
Yes.
exists, but they don't know plan B exists. And plan C
Yeah.
feels like giving in or giving up, which when it's
Right.
strategic, it is most certainly not that, but the
Right.
strategic part's important, right? So,
Yes.
yeah, and there's,
Okay.
podcasts. We have tons of podcasts. They're all archived, many, many years of podcasts. There's
Yes.
several about how can parents and schools work together to help kids and understand the model. So,
Hmm.
yeah, jump on those and
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks. We'll link a bunch of that then to this.
Oh, great.
Yes, because I imagine people will be wanting to search that out to learn more, themselves even before they, or if teachers are listening to this, to get more of an idea of it.
I
Yes,
hope so. And you can find the link
I
to our
hope so too.
podcast under the connect part of our website. Yes, connect.
Okay.
And yeah, and you can listen to it on many different
Yeah.
podcasts.
Okay.
Yeah.
I before we go, I want to turn back to you a little bit. Because one of the focus pieces or the ideas of this podcast starting was around, we get very good at sticking within our own narrative of how things go. And sometimes it's hearing stories of other people who've kind of seen a different way of doing something, that exception seeking, can we find other paths or other ideas? And so for yourself, just in, kind of forging your own path or seeing like, look, the way we were doing something wasn't working. Here was something different. Um, when did you first realize that maybe you were someone who would see things differently? And when you look back, what experiences do you think you had that kind of gave you that confidence or courage to say, okay, I'm in. I'm gonna like maybe do something that feels less traveled or a little different.
It's a good question. And
Mhm.
you're stretching my memory, but if I were to point to a situation when my nose got broken in a restraint,
Mm,
it took me a long time to come back to work.
okay.
Um, and not because, initially it was because it hurt to walk. Like when I walked, my nose would hurt, but it was really more about, I didn't think I was that vulnerable. And I'm
Mm,
like 20 something, right? But the way we were trained was that we could make anything we needed to happen. That's how we were trained. And
right.
I'm mad about that, right? And
Yeah.
then this happens and I'm like, oh my gosh, I had to, and I didn't want to come back to the program. I didn't want the kids saying like any version of like she got what she deserved or anything like that. That
Mm,
that never
hmm.
ended up happening. They were incredibly compassionate, and I didn't want them to be too mad at the kid who did it because it wasn't like he took a
Mm,
swing at me. I caught his elbow. It wasn't like he was trying to hurt me, but we
yes.
were holding him on the ground. Of course he's gonna fight, right? And
Yes.
so that really made me go, I need to, I need to do something different. Things need to be different, and then not long after that, I happened to be on vacation, but in my program that I worked in, we had a kid from a restraint have to go to the hospital because he had low oxygen in his blood. And it was, it was very
Okay.
dangerous. Restraints are very dangerous. And even though I wasn't even there, the
Yeah.
impact to me, I was like, oh my God, like we almost hurt this kid. Like,
Yes.
and so, if we didn't find a different way, I wasn't going to be there anymore.
Okay.
And, um, and I knew I was good at my job, and I don't think people wanted me to go anywhere either. And so, to say we can look at this and we can do it, and um, and I, bringing passion and being like, wow, like my eyes were opened, and then I made allies in my role too, of like people that I knew would come along
Mhm.
quickly as I had, right? Like
Mhm.
low hanging fruit of who was going to like buy in.
Mhm.
And that helped, right? So that we formed a group to be like, okay,
Yeah.
how do we answer the tough questions we're getting, and how, what do we do to move this forward? And that was immense. I needed that for sure. So
Yes.
um I think it was a little bit out of desperation and
Mhm.
sadness and fear, for what could
Mhm.
happen if we kept doing things the way we're doing things.
Mhm.
Mm.
Well, how fortunate for all those kids who are in those programs, and the staff that you started to make that change. Like think of like the impact. Yeah, what an incredible impact for all of them to have had that.
Oh, it's nice that you say that, because I don't know that I've ever really thought of it that way about the staff, because they were so mad at
Mm,
me for so long. But you know, yeah, I think especially so many years later, with more and more research coming out
mhm,
about how it's not helpful, it's so dangerous. What are we doing,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
And
mhm.
yeah, and then I worked at another organization where we actually got rid of the entire practice of restraint, stopped training staff in restraint. This is an inner city
Mhm.
organization with a lot of kids who were like gang affiliated and stuff,
Yes.
and we're like, we're not going to restrain you here. And it wasn't like we were
Yeah.
calling the police all the time. We had skills to work with them differently. And
Mhm,
that's really, really
mhm.
key. So I appreciate you saying that, because I don't know that I ever thought that the staff, like, thank you.
Well, I would certainly think that it made a difference.
Some of them for sure. Some of them went on and continued the practice in other settings. So that was nice. So yeah.
Yes. Yes. Is there anything new that's happening right now in the world of either lives in the balance or with CPS, or just research that you're aware of that you're particularly excited about or hopeful about?
Oh gosh, there's always a million new things happening. There's a huge demonstration project in Ireland going on right now.
Mm,
Some with kids, some with adults with disabilities, and applying the model there. So that's really cool. And data is going to be coming sooner than later, which is really neat. And we know, like,
yeah.
because we know already the indicators are wonderful. So
Yeah.
that's nice. Dr. Greene has a new book coming out in the start of
Yeah.
the new year. Um, the kids who are not okay, and it's really about the urgent case for schools
Mm,
to stop being late with their interventions, really. And
mhm.
um, looking at a little bit of like, sometimes we get distracted by data or other things that come out and say, well, it's social media, it's this, it's this, it's
Right.
this, it's that. And some of that stuff has a lot of merit. Some of it is noise, and we sometimes are getting distracted from the mission, which is,
Mhm.
now more than ever, we need to create flexible, validating systems for kids to be in,
Yeah.
because they're super at risk, and there's so many more of them now than there have been in the past. And so we're all excited about that coming out. Can't wait.
Yeah.
So that's another new thing. We've got a parent platform coming out next year
Mm,
as well, with lots of different resources. Been working on that for a little while. So that's going
yeah.
to be really neat. Yeah, I encourage people to sign up for our newsletter. We won't spam you a ton, but
Mhm.
there's just always new stuff happening, and we're always creating new resources. And it's the best way to stay on top of all the moving pieces at Lives in the
Yeah.
Balance. We're a very small team, but we're pretty mighty, and lots going on.
Yeah, I get this sense. Yes. Yes. Well, yeah, I look forward to seeing what comes out and reading his new book. And if you figure out a way to get into that education system down where you are, then you let us know so we can figure out how to do it up here too.
Sounds
Yes.
fantastic.
Yes. Kim, thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Colleen. Really nice to meet you and talk with you today.
Yeah, you too. You too. Thanks for listening to Exception Seekers. Tune in again as we continue to seek overlooked stories that offer new perspectives, disrupt limiting beliefs, and inspire transformative approaches to nurturing youth mental health.
This podcast was produced by North Star Networks, the guiding light for progressive media.